What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, talking about what everybody is talking about, and that is this massive rule change that Konami just dropped on us. Essentially, the entire end of match procedure has been completely flipped on its head, and it is drastically going to change in a couple of weeks, which is just absolutely crazy. This is some of the biggest news that we've gotten in quite some time. I mean, to me, when it comes to competitive play, this is equivalent to Master Rule 4 or Konami taking away, drawing when you go first. It's equivalent to Konami taking priority out of the game. Like, this is a huge deal, and it is probably going to take players a very long time to adjust. The reason that I think that this is probably crazier than some of the other ones that I mentioned, where those can all be like Yu-Gi-Oh stories, they're so monumental, I think that this is going to cause so much confusion and really so much frustration and arguments amongst players who are actually dueling. So you guys probably know the current end of match procedure, right? Intermatch procedure means if you're going into time, like basically 40 minutes and you're in game 3, but neither player has actually won the duel, what exactly are you supposed to do? Well, most people just call it turns in time, and whoever's turn it is currently, that player becomes turn 0 and you play until turn 5. So basically each player gets 3 turns to try to win the duel, and after the 3 turns, whoever has the highest life points ends up winning that game. Then you see, okay, well, I won game 1, he won game 2, and then I ended up winning game 3. By the end of match procedure, I had more life points. It's pretty fair in my opinion, because both players get a few turns to try and either do more damage or excuse me, if you're playing a defensive deck, stop your opponent from doing more damage. Even if you activated something like a Solemn Judgment early in the duel, you still got a couple more turns to actually try to mount your opponent and claim victory. But with the new end of match procedure, it is nothing like that at all. I mean, it is completely night and day. The biggest thing that you need to know, and this is a lot of reading to do, so I'm just going to give you the too long didn't read part of it. The number one thing that you have to keep in mind here is it says continue with the current phase of the game once the phase is over, stop the game. That is so important. So first off, the entire, turn 0 through turn 5, where both players get 3 turns, that is completely gone. You can just erase that from your memory. We will never have that moving forward. But this is crazy because you do not, if you are the current player, once you go with the new end of match procedures, you do not actually end up finishing your turn. It's not like I get the final turn in the game. You only finished until your phase. That is it. That means that if you are in the draw phase, once the draw phase is over, the duel is just, the game is concluded at that point. Like, that game just ends. If you are in the battle phase, you do not get to go to main phase 2. If you are in the standby phase or the main phase, you do not get to enter the battle phase. That right there in itself is absolutely mind-blowing, and I can just see so many problems that is going to cause, because you guys know that stalling has always been a problem in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a reason why at every premier event, whether it's a regional, especially out of YCS, they always make the announcement, slow play will not be tolerated, blah, 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 blah. We'll have judges walking around. If Konami has to make announcement at every major event that slow play isn't going to be tolerated, that tells you that slow play is a problem, because there are some decks that naturally work better in time. But now you're talking about situations where I'm going to give you guys a hypothetical that is just absolutely so dirty, not in good spirit, but I mean, it's something that I could actually see people doing, right? Let's say that you end your turn and you look over and you say, oh crap, there's 20 seconds on the clock. Your opponent draws a card and you say, draw phase, hold on for a second. And you go and you look through your back row and whatever, and you say, I'm thinking about doing something. And then you just say, all right, go ahead. And they say main phase, and you're just like, all right, let me check your graveyard for a second. Like, you can, in between phases, your opponent just can't go draw phase, battle phase, because both players have to agree to move to different phases. There can be times where you're going to go into time and you basically try to stall your opponent during their turn. It's very hard to prove stalling when it's not your turn, because the player whose turn it is usually the person stalling. They're usually the person who's not making the phase, or not actually progressing the game, not making decisions, not playing cards. But if it's your opponent's turn, you can essentially trap them in a situation where they never even get their battle phase. You could have like 5 monsters on the board, but if it's 20 seconds and I say, oh, can I see your graveyard? And I take 30 seconds to count your graveyard, guess what? You don't get to go to the battle phase. It does not end. End of match no longer goes until, it does not go into turns. It doesn't even go until the end of the turn. It only goes until the end of that current phase, which is absolutely ridiculous. Let me go on to the single elimination, right? Single elimination is changing also, where single elimination, I believe, used to be 4 turns. It would be turn 0 to through turn 3, but Konami has also eliminated that. It says during single elimination, if both duelists' life points are the same at the end of the current phase, step 1, which I just talked about, it says finish the current turn, so that player actually gets to finish their entire turn. That's different. It says if both life points or both duelist life points are the same at the end of the turn, then play will continue on a turn-by-turn basis, with the duelist with the most life points at the end of the turn being declared the winner of that game. There are no longer, well, there can't be ties in Top Cut, but single elimination basically means Top Cut, right? If you're at a YCS and you're in top 16, you know that if you lose, you basically go home and that's the end of your event. Well, it's now saying that if we both have 8,000 life points at the end of your phase, you get to finish out your turn. Now, if you somehow do damage to me, if you play, I don't know, Okazi or something like that, at the end of the turn, you had higher life points, you end up winning. But at the end of your turn, if we have equal life points, we basically go turn by turn by turn, and whoever has the most life points at the end of any turn ends up winning the duel, and that's how it's going to play. But honestly, man, I think that this is just going to cause so many problems. I also think that it explains some of the changes on the ban list. You guys remember when Chain Strike went to 1? A lot of us were like, that is weird as fuck. When was Chain Strike ever, or when was Chain Burn ever a problem? Now it kind of looks like Chain Burn is going to be massively buffed, because you guys know a lot of duels end up going into time, especially when you have these decks that just do so much searching. You have decks like Necroz and Performages and Pals, decks that they go into their deck 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a turn. Well, yeah, the Brandish Maidens, the Sky Strikers, they're the next deck that's going to be played like that. That deck goes into its deck like 3, 4, 5 times. So if that player ends up taking 7 minutes, if you're playing a deck like Chain Burn that can always activate any of its cards for the most part during any phase, that obviously is a nice little buff, because you don't have to worry about, oh man, I have to worry, if you go into time, it used to be with Chain Burn, you have to worry about 3 more turns where I have to conserve some cards. Maybe I can't use Magic Cylinder now, but if your opponent just goes battle phase and you know that that's the end of the game, you can just blow your load right then and there. You can activate all your burn cards and you don't have to think about tomorrow, because, as my man Kaito used to say, there is no next turn. Fuck, there is no next phase anymore. So this is going to completely change the game, and I actually think that cards like Gaga Cowboy and things like Chain Burn are getting massively buffed, because what if time is called and you're just in the main phase and your opponent's only up by 300 damage? Gaga Cowboy is a card that was basically irrelevant since the end of Arc V. It's not a card that's very playable, because 800 damage doesn't do shit, especially if you have to use your extra monster zone. But now, if you just have to get that Cowboy on board and you win the duel, you don't have to worry about anything else at the end of that main phase. The game is over. Cowboy is looking pretty damn attractive now, and I'm thinking decks like Trickstar and a whole bunch of decks that can summon rank 4's ABC, yeah, you might want to start running Cowboy again. I also think Trickstar has got a good buff out of this, because Trickstar is another deck like Chain Burn that can do damage pretty much during any one of the phases, you know what I mean? Trickstar with Ring of Destruction and Magic Cylinder, and Trickstar, by the way, or not Trickstar, Ring of Destruction, by the way, just went to 2. Konami conspiracy confirmed. They put Ring of Destruction to 2, and then they changed these rules. Oh my goodness, guys. What do you think about this? And actually, I do kind of understand why Konami did this. House of Champs was talking about it. John explained it's really, I think, for a PTO, from a premier tournament organizer standpoint. The fact is, when events go over in time, if you go to like a regional and it's at your local convention center, the tournament organizer has to pay for additional hours. If they have the event or if they have that room from, I don't know, 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., then you guys know the tournament is usually, a regional might be from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. but every round goes over 15 minutes. Every round goes over 10 minutes, because there's always that one guy in time, and time ends up taking 3 additional turns, and then those turns take 2 additional minutes. You know what I mean? The tournament organizer ends up going 2 hours over, and then they have to pay another $300-400 that they probably didn't want to have to pay. So I think it's really from a PTO standpoint. Events will definitely go a lot quicker, because time is just going to be like super quick. But honestly, I feel like this just opens the floodgates up for stalling to just be rampant. And I think a lot of cheese cards, a lot of cards that can do effect damage, are going to be a lot more like playable and a lot more important than they were before. So you guys let me know what you think of this. And for all the YouTubers out there who said, oh, I got the meta figured out, Sammy, I'm looking at you, man. You might have to go ahead and errata your list, bro. You might have to put Trickstar and Chamber Chamber, I'm doing my top 10. I wanted to talk to my stream first, which I'll be streaming in about 30 minutes. But yeah, I feel like Chain Burn is definitely going to make it on my top 10 list. Whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching as always, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.